Hello and good afternoon, everybody. Like I just said in the chat, my name is Chris and I am the content manager. And for the next 30 minutes or so, I also get to be your moderator. mobileLIVE has a lab is usually the follow-up question when people hear me reference our lab, at least in my story. And by now, I have a fairly well-rehearsed response. First off, it's not that kind of lab. Secondly, I know for a fact that you have something certified by that lab in your pocket right now. Okay, admittedly, that last one only works about 70% of the time, but that's still pretty impressive. That's because a lot of products, devices from mobile, IoT, wearables, trackers, 5G, and everything in between get tested and certified in our lab before they get released to the Canadian market. As such, doing it as long as we have, you kind of get to be a bit of an expert at it. And with the two guests with me today, with over 20 years collectively of experience, you couldn't find a better pair. So on that note, let me introduce our two most notable device certification experts, Rose and Dawson. Good afternoon, both of you. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for setting this up, Chris. Happy to be here on Friday. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, welcome, everyone. Yep.
It does
Thank
feel
you,
like
Chris.
Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Rose.
Yes, thank you, Chris, for the amazing introduction.
Oh, more than I'm just very, very happy that you're joining us today. Now, I don't want to keep the people in suspense any longer because they're not here to kind of see me ramble on. So let's get started. And what better place than the beginning? Simply put, you two help people get your devices certified, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, let's say I am one of those people. I'm a brilliant inventor and I've got a hot new high-tech 5G wearable. Tell me, why would I want to even get my device tested or certified?
Well, as a company, you want to have a presence beyond frontiers. You want to expand your market. You want to make sure to provide the best quality and experience to the end user, even if it's in a different country, right? So you want to brand that your brand is well known, and that's not impossible.
What are you, Dawson?
Yeah, I mean, I just like to add, like, just with any market, you know, like Rose says, it really comes down to branding, you know, like your pristine quality, the market leading features, you know, 5G speeds, responsiveness. You know, if it's a smartphone, it's like, wow, you know, that wow factor, right? And then setting this as your brand benchmark, especially if it's your first entry, right? And I would say certifying your device, you know, enables this. But, you know, when you do certification with the carrier, you sort of tweak this implementation to sort of optimize the performance, right? And this is the foundation of, you know, getting your business outcome, right? On top of that, I know with some of the OEMs that we work with, they find very great value in sort of future-proofing their line, right? They understand what's coming up and how it's implemented, and then they can proactively do their R&D, and sometimes even at the carrier pre-production lab network, right? And that's a huge, huge benefit, right?
Yeah, and what, you know, from a consumer point of view, what it boils down to is everybody wants a device to operate like it should, like they see in the commercials, like they've seen online, and then to find out that it doesn't, at least personally, is probably one of the most devastating things I've experienced. Okay, so now I understand why I want to get my device certified. Now tell me the what and the how. More specifically, what is the certification process and how long does it take?
Okay, let's start with the understanding of the process of the life cycle. I'm pretty sure that some of our audience it's pretty familiar with the process. However, at the high level, we can talk about we need to follow the carrier and the Canadian requirements. Technically about the Canadian requirements, it's going to be the PGCRB and the IC certificates. But in terms of the process, we can go through the stages, a couple of stages. First, we have with the engagement with the client. We need to understand who is our client and what is the product. Of course, there is getting requirements, the capabilities, set up the timeline, set up the expectations. Obviously, there is a PO involved in that part. hardware requirements, software requirements, everything that is ready to start the testing. Now for the next stage, we are gonna do the first testing. That one usually is split in some areas. Most common is go to the basic testing, which is 911 calling, messaging, media, social media, the basics that we have it for the product. Then we go to the evolved technologies like 5G, audio, roaming, something that go more technical, more deep. And finally, we close with the field testing, which is calls in the cities, calls in different environments, and that one is usually for basic and the 5G. After that, we already report all the problems that you find in the first iteration, in the first testing, and there is a bug fix period. That one, it depends on how many problems do you report and how quick the R&D team can do it. Then there is a retest stage where we make sure that whatever we found initially, it's already clean. We report the results, and send it to the stakeholders, and basically you get the certification, which allows you to get your product in Canadian market. This is an ideal scenario. Sorry, Chris.
No, please go ahead.
Yeah, this is an ideal scenario. Usually takes like 10 weeks from the beginning to the end. But of course, that one is going to be based on your capabilities of the project and how mature and how many quick fix you have in your product.
See, here I was just thinking it was a multiple choice test.
Yeah, you gave a lot of detail. Like, I just want to say, that's the ideal situation, right? Because as we all know, software delays, shipments stuck at the border, all types of logistics, working with people, like overseas, etc. Right? So I just want to say that you really have to be agile. You really have to be flexible. Sometimes it's as simply as just being available, right? You're working with someone overseas. They have some sort of priority. It can't be typically a 9 to 5. It's much more than that, right? And these factors, like Rose didn't really explicitly plan for this, and nobody really does, but they will be encountered, and that's why you need plan B, C, and D, and etc. just to encounter. There's no way around it, really.
No, yeah, I don't think anybody can argue about process, but process is one thing, but we all work in technology. We also know that tools play a critical role, right up there alongside process. And in the case of device certification, why couldn't I just go buy all the tools myself and certify and test my own device?
Oh, well, first, one short, these tools are astronomically expensive, right? You're not going to justify the utilization for the whole year, and your ROI is just going to be shot, right? But I think most importantly, technology is changing every day, and you're also dealing with the human component, right? So they're unpredictable, they're needy. There's always this high expectation, right? You never know what they want, right? So the process of understanding this and then understanding what's trending, that's the first step. And then the second step is, how do you deal with it? What's the upskilling you need, the technology adoption, how to test, what tools you need, all that is very, very time consuming. So I think back to your question, yes, tools is one piece. It's very challenging in itself. But I think the key is, the knowledge, the know-how that really drives the value on the project, right? It's not a one-time thing, really.
Like, I could go buy a car, assumingly I didn't have a driver's license, and I could buy a car, but I couldn't drive it unless I did know how. Sort of.
Exactly, and I hope you know how.
Yeah, I do. You've seen me driving to the office before. We'll discuss that another time. Rose, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, as Dawson mentioned, right now I have an example that we are trying to upscaling our data throughput. We are looking for different solutions, different vendors that cover all the 3 EPP standards that are requirement, that we can basically move it in different locations that we need it based on the network, and of course achieve the data throughput.
I think you could just drown people in all of the acronyms and just confuse
Yeah,
them.
Rose is good with that.
It's just rapid. I loved it though. Okay, continuing our fun little role play here, where I'm this dashing and genius inventor. We all know it's hypothetical. So let's say I'm currently summering in my cottage. We're way up north, flying only, super remote, but I still want to have my device certified. Does location matter? And let's just continue this role play right now and say hypothetically, after I'll be maybe heading over to upstate New York, could I get another device certified there?
I mean, to answer your question, we are located in Richmond Hill, Toronto, Ontario. I think Rose is actually there right now. Maybe afterwards she can give you a tour. I do not know. But, we have our physical lab chain. But I think, Chris, you touched on something that's really important, especially in the last couple of years. Like having that capacity to test coast to coast or to target a specific market is very important. I mean, in my opinion, it's not necessarily where you are today, but how you can really mobilize your capabilities, your experience, your know-how to another location, right? You'll be surprised how often this comes up. Rose got asked many times, like, now we need testing in this XX location, then we have to sort of mobilize all our capabilities to that location. So this flexibility is invaluable.
It's a good problem to have. I'd imagine that comes from kind of the company expanding.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with Dawson. Location can be technical standpoint or UX point of view. I mean, it's also depending on how you want to split your market, if it's going to be seniors, if it's going to be a teenager segment. And it can be Canada-wide. It could be Ottawa, main cities, Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver, or just simple resources in some sporadic cities far in the north.
Okay. So, quick recap. So, I have my device. I've come to you guys, and I've learned the process. I've got some timelines in mind. Now, my next question is, and obviously you knew this was going to come up, how long or how much is this actually going to cost me?
How much it's going to cost? Yeah, like much with anything, it would really, depends on what you want to get out of it. Like some factors are like the device features, how broad you want to go, etc. But just to give you an example, like a lot of our initial engagement is something simple. Like, for example, some Canadian regulatory, 911 testing, which is, a couple of $1,000s, right? But we've seen these relationships, these partnerships to become long-term, where we basically are handling their ebbs and flows of their product cycle. The way I see it, the important thing is that you have a vendor that is agile, is flexible, one you can utilize, one that works with you, and it's basically an extension of your team that you can scale at any time, any location. I think that's the value that you need when you're looking for a test vendor.
No, absolutely. Like, the reason I'm hypothetically speaking to both of you is because I'm too busy inventing these $1 million ideas. But as such, and being this dashing kind of inventor, I'm the stereotypical needy type. So let's just say we've gone through the whole aforementioned process and my device is now certified, but of course we knew it would be. What's next for me? Like, obviously I can, go to marketing, I can start taking it to the Canadian consumers, but am I just like, sent an email with the results and a little framed certificate with a picture of my product next to it? And then you guys wait to hear from me till the next time I invent something? Or like, how does the engagement work typically, or end for that matter?
Yeah. Good question. Great question. I definitely think our engagement has been changing. In fact, I think the whole device certification industry nowadays is, it can't be the end of the line. This ecosystem, as we all know, is constantly evolving. It's happening from all sides. It's important and natural to stay on top of the market. You have to be on top of your needs, my needs, carry everyone's needs, right? And just continue to be smart and preemptive, right? So it's not only important to keep the relationship open. It's really essential. I mean, we got to cultivate our relationship. You got to get some retrospective. You got to grow to stay ahead of the curve, and just be ready for, hey, everyone, what's next? Let's sit down, powwow, plan for it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, see, please, by all means, Rose.
I mean, no, I mean, I agree with Dawson. I mean, it's really interesting, and especially when it's a new client, you want to have like a retrospective. What to know, what's good, what's wrong, how to improve, what's gonna be my forecast. I mean, you want that kind of feedback to in order to grow.
Yeah, definitely.
It sounds like it's really more of a it is what it is. It's a very co-beneficial relationship that kind of extends beyond just like that service being provided. Because if what I understand is correct, it's you're looking for that kind of vendor who can grow with you, who can help you at the ground level when you're conceiving this product. You can take that into account from the base level and not have to rework it. Who can anticipate your needs so you don't have that little bit of a lag in between your when you have that product that's ready for testing, but you can't find someone who has the capacity or the capability to do so. So it's really about, it's not really forming, it's not so I'm not a customer. I'm more like a partner. Is that how I should view it?
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely a partnership, right? All of us need input just to understand and plan how to go forward the best way, right? It starts at certification, but we've engaged in much bigger projects that came from certification. Now we're doing a lot more of benchmarking, performance, working with automation, understanding their user experience, etc. Right? So it's something that's always growing. Like I said, we cultivate this relationship.
Nobody ever told me technology was going to be ever so changing when I got into this industry. Well, honestly, that was fantastic. And while I do feel a little inspired to create and have a device certify myself, as you two both know, I unfortunately am not that dashing inventor type. I just portray. But that's okay, because this is the part where we get to take some questions from the audience. And I actually had quite a few already pre-sent in, and I encourage anybody that has one, please just use the chat. And if we do not get it answered, we'll follow up with you after the show, I promise. So the first one coming up says, we are living in, isn't this the truth? We are living in a seemingly never-ending COVID environment. Offices are closed. How are you able to address the market when seemingly your face-to-face interactions are so limited?
I will answer that question. I guess that it's gonna be hard for everybody, not only for our company. And I mean, we are trying to use the technology as much as we can. We have simulators for the network. We have our own equipment to try to do everything in a closed environment. However, we always want to do the best experience for our clients, and we try to simulate like an end user would do. Before, we used to travel to US to do the testing, for example, for roaming. There was people traveling, going back. Now, with all the lockdowns that we have, with all the situations that we are facing, we are doing kind of tedious process. But basically, I have someone that is traveling to the border, in the place that you can see Canadian and US networks in the edge, to do the testing, right? I mean, before it was easier. Now it's more let's say, tedious, complicated, but it's still, I mean, we are there.
It's no, it's understandable. Everybody, it's the way that value is delivered has just had to be completely reimagined, and that's incredibly clever. Actually, you know, driving to that little dotted line at the in between Canada and the U.S. Sorry,
Yeah,
Gus.
it's very unfortunate, the situation and the length that we've been in. But you know, that's it. You have to be agile. But just remember, we are a essential service, and that's why we do continue to do our testing. Yes, there's a lot of stories, we should say, when we're out there in the field. You can imagine, you know, people are asking why you were out, even crossing the Quebec and Ontario borders, provincial borders. You know, not only Canada, United States, there's challenges there. But like I said, you know, this is our environment. We got to be agile. We got to be proactive in things. So.
You're warriors, essentially.
No, not warriors. Just I don't know about that, but you know, you gotta, you know, I don't know, warriors. Yes.
There we have it. Okay, you mentioned user. This is another one that came in. You mentioned user experience isn't typical in a testing team. Could you provide more insights on how this would fit into certification? I guess something that's not testable be quantifiable.
So this is more of like one of those trends, right? So there's always been a sort of concept of user experience, you know, typically BRT, UAT, even open box testing, you know, but it's not really focused on user experience, right? I think nowadays, you know, you need that direct real life feedback from your users, you know, your actual users before you launch it to the market, right? The first thing is like the sanity, you know, like, oh, I launched this market, turn it on, and you know, I can make a call, you know, data, etc. Like, just the sanity is well worth it, right? But now there's so many use cases, right? This so-called structured testing that we do from A to B in the lab, etc., doesn't cut it, you know. Now, like now, you know, you need a, you know, you have a device downtown, lunchtime, coming out of an elevator, going to underground food court, you know, watching a cat video. Like, we're not testing that in the lab, right? And you're going to encounter all these different scenarios. So UX is definitely a growing area. In fact, it's part of certain certification programs, and it definitely will take up more space going forward. I mean, everyone has a plan for this, and it's a good thing. I mean, what you get out of a real user can be so valuable compared to what you get out of a structured testing, right? So
Yeah. Just so you know, though, like now, next time somebody sees you watching a cat video at the office, you can't say I'm testing. You just you just gave your out, like,
yeah, yeah, that's it. Yeah, eating food, watching a cat video. I don't know who does that. But,
yeah, hey, that's a real world situation.
yeah.
I hope people hypothetically use that with my tracker.
Rose, you can add that to your test plans, your structured test plans.
Okay. Up next, we've got, we're getting a little personal here. So we've been struggling with an automation strategy. And as you said, devices are always changing and new requirements are constantly coming up. Is there a component, I guess a good kind of segue from the user experience one, is there a component for automation as well?
Yeah, yeah, we didn't talk, Rose, we didn't talk about this much, right? Honestly, I think this deserves a webinar in itself, right? It's a big topic. Everyone's thinking about it, right? So my thoughts. I think the approach has to be somewhat tools agnostic, right? Remember all these use cases, environment, lab, chamber, you know, features, etc., right? Even you have to consider who's using it, right? So I think the right methodology, what I, well, we're working on, and what I think needs to be done is like you sort of start small, you're tool agnostic, you start small and you iteratively build value, but it's extremely important to keep your long-term goal in mind, meaning you have to understand that this is going to be scaled. How will we scale this? And also what the portability is of this, right? Otherwise, we'll just start small and then it doesn't work here. You sort of have to start small and think about, down the road, how you're going to be using it. It's a very important factor, right? I mean, that comes up. We used to just think like, oh, what tool we're going to get? We're going to get this one tool, right? And then we're hoping it to do everything. But really, you have to look more in like each situation, what do we want to get out of this, and then look at the solution from that point of view, not just like, hey, let's buy this, which is astronomical, again, the cost.
Yeah.
And, you just have to look at each individual parts and say like, hey, let's find a solution for this, solution for that, and just build iteratively from that.
Yeah, and I think you actually kind of touched on another point that we didn't mention before. We touched on how important the tools are and how important the process is, but all of that really does in and of itself when it comes to testing has a human component to it. There are those. It's not a side job. The testing a device certification is a career, and having those years of experience to kind of bank on to refer to. It's just something that, hypothetical me couldn't, instantly pick up and do. And that's, I think something that kind of leans a bit more towards the fact that the market's seeing such an uptick in device certification.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we've got time for just about one more question. And I think it's a good one. And it's simply put, well, I'll read the whole thing. It's what's next? What exactly, you mentioned that you were preparing for, you mentioned the importance of preparing for what your clients' anticipated needs are going to be. What are some of the things that you foresee or are currently preparing for?
I think the scope there is all related to, the 5G, which is more customer centric, right? On that side, like I alluded to before, that user experience is a big thing, right? It's more of a experience now, more than previously. It was more like make a call, do data, etc. Now it's like the whole experience. We're thinking about AR, VR. We're thinking about connected cars. We're thinking about smart cities. We're thinking about these crazy latencies, these throughput, etc. Right? All this is next. I mean, we have weekly meetings with tool vendors to just to understand what is the best angle to take with a certain OEM who wants this done and a carrier who has this new feature coming out, and then what the capability is, how do we test it? It's a combination of all that, right? But as Rose mentioned before, right now it's like data throughput is the big, huge thing. Video, we know video is going to be a big bandwidth sort of gobbling, like ticking up the network. So those are two low-hanging things that are coming, but other stuff for sure.
So in short, you're saying hypothetical me needs to get busier inventing more stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Good summary.
That's that's perfect. That's actually all the time we have today. I told you we're going to keep it lean and clean. I wanted to give a special thanks to you two for dragging yourselves away from work for at least 30 minutes to chat with me. Just seems all I have to do to get a conversation with you two is throw a webinar. It's good to know. Also, big thanks to everybody in the audience for coming. I apologize if we did not get to any of your questions, but you can always reach out to us, and I promise to get your question answered. Not by myself, by one of these two. A recording of today's conversation will also be shared with everybody, so stay tuned and keep an eye on your inboxes and our social media feeds for some more upcoming events. I promise we've got some really good stuff in the works. As always, I wish you guys a great rest of your day, have a great weekend, and be safe.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.